Good morning. This is not a lecture. This is a dialogue, which means I want you to interrupt if you don't understand something. Because there's no point going forward unless you get the basic concepts. Okay? I have microphones. I need a couple of volunteers, about 3 volunteers. I have these handheld microphones. If you have a question, just put your hand up and they will walk to you and hand you the microphones. You can ask the question, because I want everybody to hear the question before I answer it. Okay? So I have 3 microphones here for people to hand out. And let me just give you a primer. If you look at this, this one turns it on and turns it off. So keep it off until somebody has a question. Again, underneath. That's way, okay. And then there's one more here. Please keep it off until somebody has a question. This pointer, that way. Okay, yeah. Let's assume something. Let's assume this morning newspaper says, headline says, a jumbo jet with 500 passengers crashed. Would you be concerned? Well, you start to wonder what's going on, right? Suppose you heard an hour later, the second jumbo jet crashed in Australia. Would you be more concerned now? What if you heard that a jumbo jet in New York crashed, one in Los Angeles crashed, one in Australia crashed, and one in New Zealand crashed? Would you be concerned now? You think there's a problem with the airline system? Did you know that's what's happening every day? About 4 jumbo jets full of people are dying every day. From what? Cancer. Every day, 4 jumbo jets are crashing. How come you're not worried about it? If jumbo jets crashed, you'd be writing to the FAA and say, what's going on, right? How come nobody's concerned that about 2,500 people, 2,300 people to be exact, are dying every day from cancer? And the sad thing is, most of them could have been prevented. Now, 85% of all chronic illnesses, diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, strokes, all of these chronic diseases, 85% of them can be prevented by simply changing your lifestyle. By the way, let me give you a couple of disclaimers. I'm not a food critic. Don't be offended by anything I say. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to educate you. That's the reason I'm here, to educate you. What you do with the information is up to you. I'm here to give you the information. Okay, let's start. It'll get there. Okay. So, how many of you have heard this term IGF? It stands for insulin-like growth factor, number 1. Actually, have you heard of growth factor? How many of you have heard the term growth factor? Everybody knows that the growth factor is the one that makes cells multiply and people grow. Okay? Now, but most people don't know it is not the growth factor that directly makes your cells grow. It's not the growth factor that makes the little boys grow into big men. A lot of people think so, but it's not so. What happens is the growth factor is released from a gland in the brain called pituitary gland. And that growth factor does cell growth. What happens is it comes down to the liver and stimulates the liver to secrete another hormone, which is called the IGF-1, insulin ready growth factor number 1. And that is the one that makes all cells grow. Let me ask you a question. I am not into farming, dairy farming particularly, but I'm told by experts that the calf doubles its weight in 6 weeks. Is that true? Did you know that? Calf that's born doubles its weight in 6 weeks. What does it drink for the first 6 weeks? What does it consume? Milk. What is in the milk that makes the calf double its weight in 6 weeks? Take a wild guess. IGF-1. Okay? IGF-1 is the one that makes. So let me ask you a question. Were you all aware that all of us have cancer cells in our body at all times? How many of you knew that? The reason why we don't get cancer is because those cells are identified by the body's defense mechanism, try to destroy them. Okay? So let's assume you have cancer cells and you have the IGF in your body. The IGF does not discriminate. Okay? It doesn't care whether the cell is a normal cell or a cancer cell. It makes every cell multiply and grow. So since cancer cells have the propensity to multiply very, very fast, what do you think the IGF is going to do? Going to make the cells, cancer grow really, really fast. So the question is, where is IGF? Let me show you something. We have, can you advance the slide, please? Thank you. This is actually a group of people in Ecuador, in South America. This is a big, complete family. There are about approximately 100 people in that family. And you'll notice that this is an adult. He's not a young boy. These are all grown-ups. Now, this is to compare normal American visitors. These are grown people in this particular family. I'll show you another. Next slide, please. Again, you see normal Americans, and these are the family members. Many of them are 80 and 90 years old. Did you know this particular, they are born with a error in the metabolism. Even though they have growth hormone and IGF-1, the IGF-1 has to touch a receptor. In other words, all the cells have a receptor, like they're like hands. They reach out and grab the IGF and pulls it in. And they're called receptors. These people don't have too many receptors. They lack the receptors. Okay? That is why they haven't grown much. But did you know that in this entire family of 100 people, not one person has ever died of cancer? Do I need to repeat that statement? In this family of 100 people who have not able to respond to IGF-1, there's never been a case of cancer, never been a case of diabetes. They've died of other things, car accident, tripping over a staircase, but none of them has ever died from cancer or diabetes. So how do you explain this? The only reason is they are not able to respond to IGF-1. Next slide, please. It's not working. Oh, yeah, now it's working. Okay. So, okay. Now, here's the interesting thing. I have quoted the studies at the bottom, and if you have any question, you can always get a copy of these slides, and you can look through them for yourselves. You see, this is a study. They were looking at prostate cancer. They showed that in this particular study, there was a dramatic SAD means standard American diet. Okay, SAD is standard American diet. Now, what they did was they analyzed that the suppression of prostate cancer. This study was trying to find out how can you suppress prostate cancer. They found that the standard American diet was able to suppress. Now, even a terrible diet can still suppress cancer. I mean, it's not like completely devoid of any nutrients. So in this study, found that the standard American diet was able to kill about 9% of the cancer cells. But the vegetarian diet, plant-based diet, whole foods plant-based diet, was able to kill 70% of the cancer cells. Just the diet alone. Just the diet alone. Now here's another study on breast cancer. I'll tell you a little bit more about this cancer. What they did was they took women and they put them on they were on a standard American diet. They put them into two groups, and what they did was they measured the blood level of the IGF-1 in both groups. Then they took the blood from the plant-based people and dropped it on cancer cells, breast cancer cells. And they did the same thing with women who had been on standard American diet. They took a drop of blood and dropped it on the cancer cells. They found the same thing happened. The standard American diet, the blood drop, was able to kill about 9% of the breast cancer cells. The blood from the vegans, plant-based dieters, was able to kill 70% of the cancer cells. Now, these people did something fascinating. The first study I showed you on prostate cancer, the prostate cancer, that study referred to men who had been on a plant-based diet for 1 year, 12 months. This study was only 2 weeks. Do you hear what I said? The study on breast cancer was only 2 weeks. And they measured the IGF-1 in both groups. The IGF-1 was very high in standard American diet, in the blood, but the blood of the plant-based people had a very low level of IGF-1. So these researchers got very bold. He said, you know, what if we took the vegans and added some IGF-1 into their blood and then put it on the cancer cells, and the cancer kill rate dropped back to 9%. In other words, they showed both ways that if you went on a plant-based diet, the cancer cell death rate dramatically improves to about 70%. But if you add back the IGF that was missing, the kill rate drops back to 9%. You're confused. I'm sorry?
But it's just an ethical question. Did the participants know?
Yeah, this is an open study. This is not a blind study.
They agreed what was going to be.
Yep, this is an open study. Okay, but what I'm trying to impress upon you is this second study, the results occurred within 2 weeks. What does it mean? That means your body can start to repair itself and start killing cancers within 2 weeks after you switch over. That's the model of the study. Here's another study showed that consumption of 1 egg a day increases the spread of prostate cancer 2 times. A serving of chicken actually increases the prostate cancer spread rate 4 times. It spreads 4 times faster. Now you might say, what is in chicken that's so bad for you? Well, lots of things. For example, Did you know 90% of the chicken that is sold in the United States is contaminated with E. coli bacteria? Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, I'll cook it, so I get rid of the E. coli bacteria, right? Well, there is another problem. Anytime you subject any kind of meat, whether it be pork, beef, lamb, chicken, fish, it doesn't matter. Anytime you heat any muscle fiber, it generates about 20 different chemicals called heterocyclic amines. Every one of them causes cancer. In addition, there is a virus in the chicken called adenovirus 36, which causes cancer. Now, those of you people who want to be slim and pretty, did you know that chicken actually causes the greatest amount of weight gain? We did this. What they did was they took volunteers, women volunteers, put them into 4 categories. One of them got beef, another one got pork, another one got a lamb, and so on. And then they followed them. By the way, they had to consume the same number of calories. You couldn't eat more or less. They followed them for the next 3-4 years. They found that the women who consumed chicken had the greatest amount of weight gain. Then they discovered that adenovirus 36 causes weight gain. It also causes cancer. Now, I also told you, anytime you subject any kind of a muscle to heat, any kind of heat, roasting, boiling, it doesn't matter how you heat it. The minute you heat the muscle, it generates this cancer-producing chemical called heterocyclic amines. So you have a choice. You can eat raw chicken and avoid, die of E. coli poisoning, or you can eat cooked chicken and die of cancer. You just choose which way you want to die, right? An average mid-sized egg contains about 220 milligrams of cholesterol. Your daily limit of cholesterol is 300. Now, there are a lot of myths going around. There's lots of myths going around. Have you heard expression that eggs don't really cause heart attacks? Have you heard that? Yeah. Here's the problem. A lot of people don't realize it. Let's assume for a moment everybody in the United States smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Let's assume that. Okay? Then we know from scientific studies that if you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes, your risk of cancer, lung cancer goes up. Okay? I'm not saying this is the actual number, but I'm using it as an example to teach you. Let's assume the risk of cancer is 20%. Lung cancer is 20% when you consume, smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, right? What happens if you go from 2 packs to 3 packs? The risk of lung cancer probably will go up by 1%. So instead of 20%, it will be 20.1%, 0.1%, right? So the tobacco industry can clearly say to you, you don't have to worry about smoking because it's not going to increase your risk of lung cancer. What they fail to tell you is that it's already up to 20% in this particular example. It will go up only by another 1%. So it's 20 to 21% not a big deal, right? Okay, you understand what I'm getting at? This is what the food industry does. They'll tell you, here's the problem. If you have a cholesterol of 400, your risk of heart attack is extremely high. If you already cholesterol of 400, you think it's going to make any difference whether you add another 2 eggs to your breakfast every morning? No, risk is high. Now, a lot of people will tell you when the cholesterol level goes from 400 down to 300, your risk of heart attack doesn't go down. It's still pretty high. Okay, it may go down by 1%. So they could clearly say cutting down on eggs doesn't reduce your heart attack risk. They can safely say that. They are not lying, but they're misleading you. They fail to tell you if you quit smoking, your risk will go down from 20% down to 1% perhaps. That's what they should be telling you. You see, this is the trick they use both in the food industry and other industries to get you to continue your bad habits. Now, here are some graphs I told you. The significant increase in death rate when you consume these products. Now, everybody says, what about fish? Well, here's the problem with fish. There was a time fish was not so bad. When Jesus served fish, it wasn't contaminated. Now it's highly contaminated. The most contaminated animal product in the world is fish. And the two most contaminated fish are salmon and tuna. Why? They also contains tremendous amount of industrial toxins called PCBs and dioxins, which all cause cancer. Now, a lot of people say, oh, big deal, you know, like some of my friends told me, Dr. Chelliah, am I going to drop dead tomorrow if I eat fish today? I said, no. Oh, I don't care. In other words, they are not concerned what happens maybe 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. They are only concerned if they're going to drop dead today after eating fish. By the way, there are some fish that if you eat today, you'll drop dead, but that's for another discussion. All I'm going to tell you is that there is another problem a lot of people have. How many of you here know of a wheat plant that eats other wheat plants? Have you heard of any plants that eat other plants? No? I'm sorry. Yeah. Exception accepted. Here's what happens. Here are some small fish floating in the sea, and these small fishes have been living for about 2 weeks. So they are swallowing water, right? So they pick up maybe 1 billionth of a toxin into the body. Maybe after about 2 months, they've developed maybe 10 parts per billion parts of that toxin. Okay? Here comes a bigger fish that has been living for maybe 6 months. So it has accumulated a lot of the toxin itself, right? But it also eats 100 of these small fish. So now all the toxins, the small fish, are transferred to the big fish. Are you with me? That doesn't happen in the plant kingdom. You don't see one plant eating other plants, right? So this amplification doesn't happen. This is called biological amplification. So the toxins accumulate in small fish, bigger fish, bigger fish. This is why, you know how big tuna fish get? Huge. Lots of toxins. They're highly toxic. Here's an interesting study. This was published. I want you to pay attention. I don't know whether you can read the small print. It was done in 1989. And I also want you to make sure you understand the name of the first author, M.L. Burr. Dr. M.L. Burr published this report. It was in 1989. What he did was he took about 2,000 men and put them on fish versus no fish. And he reported that 2 to 3 portions of oily fish seem to reduce the death rate in men who consume fish. And immediately, the fish oil industry exploded. Everybody said, wow. And fish oil industry is the billion-dollar industry. Okay? Now, the same researcher, that's called the DART-1 trial. Okay? The same researchers, not anybody else. The group went back and looked at the data and said, you know, we're not so sure this stuff makes a lot of sense. So what we're going to do, we're going to repeat the study with more volunteers, more careful analysis. So they did a DART-2 trial. Here they took 3,000 men and they did a study, carefully analyzed it and reported. The same group, M.L. Burr, in 2003, they demonstrated actually fish kills more people. Fish consumption actually causes increased death rate and heart attack rate. Now, Have you ever heard a doctor tell you about the DOT2 trial? The nutrition, the dietitian says you eat more fish, and you say, based on what? She will talk about the DOT1 trial and ask her, have you heard of the DOT2 trial? And she will look like a deer in headlights. DOT2 trial? There was another trial? Why did anybody tell you about the DOT2 trial? Because the fish oil industry doesn't want you to know about the DOT2 trial. Do you understand what I'm getting at? They don't want you to, because you'll stop buying fish oil. This is why I tell all my patients, stop consuming fish oil. By the way, some interesting facts. Why do people tell you to eat fish? Do you know? What is a supposed benefit? Omega-3. Let me ask you a question. Which organ in the fish's body makes omega-3? Somebody give her a microphone. Anybody knows the answer? Which part of fish makes the omega-3? Any guesses? Go ahead. Somebody says liver. No. Try again. Huh? No. No.
Pituitary.
No. Fish does not make omega. Fish doesn't make omega-3. So you'll say, how come people are telling you to eat fish for omega-3? That is because fish eats an algae in the water called the golden algae that makes omega-3. Now, how do I get my omega-3? I get it from the algae and skip the fish and all the toxins in the fish. So there is no reason for you to eat fish, even for omega-3. You get it from the algae-based. In fact, you can buy it in the store. You just go and ask for vegan omega-3 or algae-based omega-3, and they'll give it to you. And the price is not a whole lot more. You don't have to pay a premium price just because it's not fish oil based. Okay? So this is all a myth. This is what I'm coming here to explore, all these myths that people tell you. Dairy, cholesterol. I just finished telling you there's a cholesterol. By the way, you know that cholesterol is an essential ingredient of every cell in the body. You're all aware of that, right? You will die if you don't have any cholesterol. But the body makes enough cholesterol for its use. You don't need any cholesterol from outside. Now, do you know which plant product has cholesterol? Do you know of any plant product that has cholesterol? None. There is no plant that cholesterol does not come from any plants. So where does it come from? All cholesterol comes from animal products. By the way, did you know that cancers love cholesterol? They thrive on cholesterol. In fact, if you deprive these cancer cells of cholesterol, they'll stop growing that fast. I have a problem. Oh, okay. Cancer cells love cholesterol and they love methionine. Methionine is an amino acid. As you know, let's go back to fundamentals. There are only 3 kinds of foods in the world: carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. Right? Carbohydrates are made up of simple sugars like glucose, fructose, and all that. Proteins are made up of amino acids. They are the building blocks. And fats are made up of fatty acids. So when you come to proteins, amino acids, there are 2 kinds of amino acids. There are some amino acids that have what they call sulfur in them, and there are some amino acids which do not have sulfur in them. Sulfur containing amino acids are mostly in animal products, like methionine is a classical example. They did a study, showed that if you feed people a diet deficient in methionine, doesn't have any methionine, the cancer cells didn't do very well. They died. Methionine deficient diet is a good diet for killing cancer cells. Where is methionine? All animal products contain methionine. Now, I just told you about heterocyclic amines. I told you anytime muscle is subjected to any kind of heat, it generates heterocyclic amines. Every one of them causes cancer. And I just told you about methionine. Now, here are some plant-based products that are good for you. Kale, spinach, broccoli. And then beans. I think beans are God's gift to human race. Did you know that the people who eat beans have the highest life expectancy anywhere in the world? Did you know that? In fact, I would say, I have a theory. I tell people, a bean deficient diet is a suicide diet. Bean deficient diet is a suicide diet. If you want to commit suicide, stop eating beans. Now, some people tell me, oh, I don't like beans. Well, there are about 20 different kinds of beans in the world. Which beans do you like? A lot of people usually ask me when I say this, what kind of beans should I eat? Which is the best for me? You know what the best beans that for you is? The one that you like. Because the best beans in your pantry is not going to do you any good unless it's in your stomach. Right? Now, couple of things. Beans should be completely cooked. Do not consume beans that are not fully cooked, because they have a chemical called lectins, which are poisonous. You won't drop dead, but you're going to get stomach upset and all kinds of GI symptoms. So beans should be thoroughly cooked, and beans should be cooked without sugar or molasses or meat. Pork and beans will not do the trick. That will increase the risk of cancer, not decrease it. So you got to cook beans without any sugar. By the way, did you know that I had to put up a sign on my office door this morning, said there'll be no lunch today. You know why? I serve a free lunch in my office every Saturday at 12 noon. If you ever come into Grand Forks on a Saturday, come into my office. And every Saturday I have beans, and I have greens, dark greens, and I have tomato soup, and I have lentils and spinach together. We serve about 7 different items. And the purpose of that is I want to teach people. You know, it's not enough for me to come and tell people, hey, do this. I want to show them that you can do it. And one of the reasons I started this, because one of my patients, when I told him that he needs to start, eating whole foods, plant-based, he came back 6 weeks later. He walked into my office unannounced without an appointment. And he said, Dr. Chelliah, I'm disgusted. I said, what happened? I tried your idea. It didn't work. I can't stomach it. I said, Pete, I said, I'll tell you what. Why don't you come this Saturday? I'll cook for you. Bring your wife. In that Saturday, he and his wife ate the food, and he said, Doc, if I can eat like this, I can be a vegetarian. What is the moral of the story is, you can't just boil the beans and put it on a plate. You got to cook it with some creativity. I use a lot of fresh herbs and spices, so the beans taste absolutely fantastic. In fact, every Saturday when I get done with the lunch, there's nothing to take home. Everybody, it's all gone. So it is important that if you eat plant-based, you have to use some creativity. It takes some effort on in your part to get it done. But the fact of the matter is that's a lot less expensive than going to the emergency room, right? Cancer treatment. In fact, one of my friends' sister-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. The cancer center had a agreement. They said that by the time she got done, it cost her about $200,000. And that's just an average cost. So I'll tell you, this is a heck of a lot cheaper to eat beans and greens. Now, did you know that the darker the color of the fruit and vegetable, the greater the nutrition? You did not know that? Like, for example, strawberries are good for you. Blueberries are better. Blackberries are even better. Okay? Like, for example, yellow squash is not as nutritious as green squash. Eggplant is even more nutritious than green squash. So the darker the color, more nutrition it has. Also, I came across a very disturbing study just a few weeks ago. This came from the federal government. They showed that if people were simply increase the amount of vegetable they consume, they said they can avoid 1.9 million more deaths in the United States. Every year, 1.9 million lives can be saved by simply encouraging people to eat more vegetables. They found that you can prevent up to about approximately 3 million more lives by people having to eat more nuts and seeds. Almost 3 million lives can be saved if people can be encouraged to eat more beans and nuts. And here's the punchline. 4.9 million lives could be saved in the United States from death if they were simply asked to eat more fruit. Fruit consumption is absolutely horrendous in the United States. By the way, it was a fascinating study. It doesn't make a point, but it's a humorous item, but it's fun mentioning it. They took all the green leafies that are sold in the United States, divided by the number of people living in the United States. You know what it averaged to? Half a spinach leaf per person per month. That's how pitiful our diet in the United States is. By the way, when I talk about plant-based, I'm not talking about vegan. I'm not talking about vegan diet. Do you know why I'm not talking about vegan diet? Beer is vegan. Vodka is vegan. Where do you think vodka comes from? Where does beer come from? Plant, right? There's no animal product in that. So I'm not recommending a vegan diet. But don't go and say, Dr. Chelliah told me I need to be on a vegan diet. I'm going to eat French fries and drink beer. No, that's not vegan. I'm talking about the whole foods, plant-based. Eat as close to the nature as possible. Eat as close to the nature as possible. So when it comes to fruit, berries are the best. By the way, there's a warning. Berries should be completely washed thoroughly because there's a lot of pesticides on berries. That's the only way they can grow berries. Now, do you know how to clean vegetables and fruit? Anybody know the best way to do it? Anybody? Somebody give her a microphone, please. What is the best way to clean vegetables and fruit?
Vinegar. Use vinegar.
Vinegar works, however, it's very expensive way. You have to use full strength vinegar. The dilute vinegar doesn't work. It works a little bit, but you got to use a full strength vinegar. Any other suggestions? How to clean vegetables? Try to get rid of pesticides. Go ahead.
Peroxide.
Peroxide is not good for you. You don't want to consume a lot of this peroxide. It's also not cheap.
Blanching them in boiling water.
Boiling water the problem boiling water is that it's going to it's going to cook the vegetable, right? If you want to eat raw broccoli, it's going to be cooked by the time you throw hot water in it. There is a simple way. By the way, don't buy any of those vegetable washes they sell. None of them works. Not a single one works. They were tested in the laboratory. None of them works. So don't pay a lot of money for it. Somebody has a question? Answer.
No. How about salt?
Exactly. Salt water. 10% salt water will get rid of 95% of the pesticides. What you do is you take a basin of water, put some regular salt. It doesn't matter. It's rock salt. It's a sodium chloride. Put a couple of tablespoons of it. The chemical composition should be 10% solution. And then you dump all the vegetables and fruit there and let it soak for 15 minutes and then thoroughly rinse them in running water to get rid of all the salt. And that removes 95% of the pesticides. Okay? Now, some of the other fruit that a lot of people don't know about, well, apples, everybody loves apples, right? And pears, these have quite a bit of fiber, high fiber. And my favorite is persimmon. How many of you know what persimmon is? Do you know it tastes awesome? It's absolutely sweet, but it has a tremendous amount of fiber. And that's what you want. I'm sorry? Okay. And I already mentioned nuts. Nuts should be consumed on a regular basis. And there are myths going around about nuts that people say, oh, you eat nuts, you'll gain weight. Have you heard that? Because it's got a lot of fat. You don't gain any weight, you lose weight. Unless, of course, you decide to eat 4 pounds of almonds in one sitting, then, of course, you might gain weight. But by and large, nuts will not, unless you're roasted in butter or something like that. No. Basic nuts, particularly lightly dry roasted, perfectly fine. You want to slightly dry roasted because raw nuts still have a bit of lectins in it. You can still eat them raw, but lightly toast it, that'll be fine. Now, here's the beauty of the nuts. They have a lot of healthy nutrients that actually help you lose weight. There is an amino acid called arginine, and so arginine will help you suppress appetite and make you lose weight, help you lose weight. So my favorite is not peanut butter. My favorite is unsalted, what do you call, plain almond butter. You can make your own if you want, or you can buy it. I believe one chain store carries it, but make sure it doesn't have any hydrogenated oils added to it or sugar added to it. Should be no sugar added to it. Whole grains will also help. Now, these kale, spinach, Swiss chard. Did you know there was a study shown that kale is one of the most nutritious green leafies that you can buy on the market and eat? Now, here's the reason why these cruciferous vegetables are extremely useful. They contain, for example, broccoli contains this isocyanate, and that is called glucosinolate. That's the common name for it. There is an enzyme in the broccoli called myrosinase that converts glucosinolates into sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is the most powerful chemical that suppresses cancer cells. Now, here's the problem. The sulforaphane is easily destroyed by heat. Okay, so if you cook broccoli, what happens is, let me back up. You see, this broccoli contains two chemicals. It contains this, contains that, right? They are in separate cells. They are not together. And the only time they come together is when you bite into it or chop it. For example, you remember during Independence Day, kids walk around with the little glow sticks. When they purchase the glow sticks, they don't glow. What do you have to do to make the glow sticks glow? Crack it. What happens when you crack it? There are two chemicals at the two ends of the stick. They come together, form a new chemical that glows. Same way, these two are in separate cells, and the only time they will come together is when you bite into it or crush it. So my answer to you is, chop up the broccoli, let it sit on the kitchen counter for 15 minutes before you cook it. What happens is, when you chop it up, this reaction takes place, a lot of sulforaphane is produced, so now you have a tremendous amount of sulforaphane. Even if you put it in hot water, some of the sulforaphane will be still remaining. Whereas if you just chop it up and throw it in the hot water right away, you don't get the benefit of this reaction. In fact, I tell people, I try to shock people into thinking differently. I tell people, in North Dakota and Minnesota, you know, the healthiest, freshest vegetable is not the one that you get in the supermarket. Let me ask you a question. If you buy broccoli in Thief River Falls, how old do you think the broccoli is? Certainly, I'm not talking about summer, let's say in the winter. How old do you think the broccoli is? It's probably grown in California, put it on a truck, and takes about 3 days to get here. By the way, do you buy it the same day it arrived in the supermarket? No. When you go there, maybe it's been sitting there for another 2 days. So the broccoli is about 5-6 days old, technically speaking. How do they freeze when they buy chopped broccoli in the frozen section? You know what they do? They harvest it, clean it, immediately put it into bags and freeze them. So by the time you get to you, they're actually fresher, quote unquote, fresher than the one that you buy in the supermarket, number one. Number two, remember that broccoli has been chopped up. So all the time it's sitting in your freezer because remember, freezer does not stop all reaction, it only slows it down. Okay? So you're getting a lot more sulforaphane formed in the broccoli by the time you open the bag and toss it into your hot water. Okay? Also, we better hurry up. So, studies have shown that broccoli can kill breast cancer cells, stomach cancer cells, prostate cancer cells, colon cancer cells, kidney and bladder cancer cells. It is one of the most wonderful anti-cancer vegetable that you can consume. So let me ask you a question. How come you're not eating broccoli every day? Huh? Now, breast cancer is promoted by, actually, you know that men and women both have testosterone. Women have less testosterone than men, and vice versa, women. But the point is, both of us. So there are some testosterone in women that tends to promote, that can be converted by the enzyme aromatase that the cancer cells form. The cancer cells produce aromatase that converts testosterone, small amount of testosterone in women, into estrogen that promotes breast cancer growth. Okay? But here's what happens. When you eat cooked mushrooms, the aromatase enzyme gets destroyed. And so the testosterone cannot be converted to estrogen. This is why cooked mushrooms should be consumed by women on a daily basis. Why not eat raw mushrooms? Don't ever eat mushrooms in the salad bar. Anybody know why? There's a poison in the mushrooms, raw mushrooms. But when you subject to heat, even if you cook it in the microwave oven for a minute, it destroys it. Okay? So don't ever eat raw. The poison is called agritine, but agritine is very sensitive to heat. If you just throw it in hot water for 2 minutes, it's gone. Or you put it in the microwave oven for 2 minutes, it's gone. Or you toast it in the oven for 2 minutes, it's gone. but you should not be consuming raw mushrooms. By the way, people will say, should I eat all those exotic mushrooms? We found that the most beneficial, the healthiest mushroom is the simple button mushroom that you buy, the cheapest mushroom that you buy. That's all you need to buy. But cook it before you eat it. Cabbage, again, the same problem. Cabbage has the same chemicals like broccoli, the myrosinase, and you want sulforaphane generated, which is the anti-cancer chemicals. Now, I showed you a picture of this red cabbage. Why? Number one, red cabbage has more nutrition than green cabbage or white cabbage. Remember I told you colors, the darker color has more nutrition, number one. Number two, the red cabbage, purple cabbage, has, believe it or not, it stores much better than the regular cabbage. I accidentally forgot about this purple cabbage I had in my fridge. A month later, it was still okay. I just removed the top part, I chopped it up and cooked it. Fantastic. It is one of the most cost-effective vegetables that you can eat. Extremely beneficial. The reason why these dark vegetables and fruit are beneficial is because of the anthocyanins. That's the pigment. The dark pigment is called anthocyanin. Now, sweet potato. How many of you like sweet potatoes? Did you know it's one of the most powerful anti-cancer vegetables in the world? Why aren't you eating sweet potato for dessert every day instead of the pecan pie, the apple pie? You just microwave the sweet potato for about 3 minutes and then pop it open and eat it. Tastes good. Somebody has a question here. Please give me a microphone.
Yeah, I like potatoes, different kinds of potatoes. But is there a color thing in the potatoes? Because you can get, we have some different, the Huckleberry Gold will have a purple skin, but it'll have a white flesh. And can you eat a potato raw?
Do not eat potato raw, number one. Number two, potatoes are, although it's one of the favorite in America, in fact, I love potatoes, but they are not the healthiest, unfortunately. The reason is that it's has very little fiber, lots of carbs, and it also, by the way, do not eat potato skins. They have a poison in them. You must peel the potatoes, okay? So sweet potatoes, you can eat the peel as well. It is extremely healthy. It can kill lots of cancers. I've listed the cancers that it can kill. So and you know what? Sweet potatoes are one of the cheapest, least expensive vegetables that you can buy. So I don't understand why we are not eating more, sweet potatoes. Now, some of the other stuff we'll talk about it this afternoon, but I'll briefly mention it. Turmeric has been known to be an extremely powerful, spice against cancers. I'll talk about more in this afternoon. Garlic is very powerful. Also ginger. And you know what the last one is? Anybody know what this is? Huh? Oh, I put it there. Yeah, it's fenugreek. It's a spice, and they seem to kill cancer cells very well. Now, we talked about carbohydrates. Let me give you an example. I want somebody, I need a volunteer. There is a common misunderstanding about carbs. Not all carbs are bad. Can you look at them and do not look at the percentage line? Look and tell me what is the total amount of carbs per serving in this bean. These are beans.
So it says the serving size is half a cup. Total carbohydrates is 18 grams.
18 grams of carbs in one serving, okay? It contains how many servings?
It says about 3.5 servings per container.
So now, the next line after total carbs, what is it? The next line.
It says dietary fiber,
How much?
4 grams,
Okay, so you said total carbs are how many?
18 grams,
Now, fiber is 4. How many times does 4 go into 18? Round it up to 20. Let's say
4
Five.
and a half, 5.
5. So the ratio of the carbohydrate to fiber is 5 to 1. That's good. Okay? Look at this wheat hamburger buns. Do the same, please. Tell us how many total grams of carbs per serving.
Says total carbohydrates is 21 grams per serving. A serving size is 1 bun.
And what I did, you tell me the next line.
Dietary fiber is 2 grams.
Wow. Say that again. How many grams of carbs?
21 grams of carbohydrates, 2 grams of dietary fiber per
What's the
bun.
ratio?
10 to 1.
10 to 1. That's a sure way to put on weight. I can guarantee you, you eat like this, you will put on weight. There's a gentleman has a question there.
Was that white or whole wheat?
I don't care what it is. You know what? You know, all bread is processed food, correct? Did you ever realize that? All bread is processed. So when it says whole wheat, don't believe all that nonsense. Yeah, it may be whole wheat, but you got like, you know what? Whole wheat pasta contains 32 grams of carb per serving and 2 grams of fiber per serving. What's the ratio? 60 to 1. Do you realize why people who eat a lot of Italian food are on the heavy side? Pasta is extremely dangerous. So the problem is not the carbs that we consume, it is the carbs without fiber that we consume. I guarantee you, I challenge you to gain weight by eating beans every day. 5 to 1 ratio. You can't gain weight on this one. There are other beans which have a ratio of 3 to 1. Okay? And I happened before the talk, I walked through the kitchen, see, and I saw some interesting, I read the food label just like that. The ratio like 24 to 1. By the way, I saw a Japanese noodle in Costco in Fargo. I took a photograph of it. The one serving contained 84 grams of carbs. 84 grams of carb per serving, and it had 3 grams of fiber per serving. That means the ratio is 27 to 1. That's why people are unhealthy in this country. By the way, every time I give you bad news, I try to give you good news at the same time. There is only one pasta that is made in North Dakota that follows this rule. Did you know that? You can buy it in Hugo's. It's called Three Farmers' Daughters. Have you heard the brand? Three Farmers' Daughters. You go into Hugo's and check it out. Three Farmers' Daughters pasta. They have all kinds of rotini, all the various type shapes, and it contains high fiber. Go ahead.
What about rice?
I'm sorry?
What about rice?
Rice? Rice is high carbs, no fiber. Now that I've told you, you want me to show you how to cheat? You all love to cheat, don't you? I come from India, so we raised on rice. But I know rice doesn't have any fiber. But there's a way to cheat. I never eat rice without beans. Beans have a ratio of like 3 to 1, 4 to 1, right? And rice doesn't have any fiber practically. So if you combine them, the overall, so here's the rule that I teach. Each individual item on your plate should have a ratio of 5 to 1 or less, if at all possible. If that is not possible, the second alternative is the combined ratio should be, like if you combine like rice and beans, then the ratio should be 4 to 1 or 5 to 1, then you're okay. All right? Any other questions? Now, the beans have other chemicals. By the way, beans are the perfect food. You know why? It has all the all the components that you need. It has fat. You heard of soybean oil, right? Right? So it has oil. It has protein. It has the highest amount of protein. It has carbs. It has fiber. How could you do any better than that? High carb, but lots of fiber, protein, and fat. Now, there's a myth I need to dispel. Can I have about 5 more minutes? There's a myth I need to dispel. Have you heard people say, oh, you shouldn't eat soybeans because men will develop breasts because it's got estrogen, and it promotes estrogen, will promote breast cancer. Have you heard that? Those myths? Totally false. The reason why it is thing is because soybeans has a chemical that looks like estrogen, but it's not estrogen. Okay? Because there are two kinds of receptors, estrogen 1 and estrogen 2 receptor. Estrogen 1 is the one that is promoted by outside estrogen. That's what estrogen, it increases clotting factors in the liver, so it tends to clot blood. It increases breast cancer risk and uterine cancer risk. However, there's E2 receptor, the isoflavones from the soybeans and other beans actually activate the E2 receptor, which has exactly the opposite effect. Okay? So you don't have to worry about beans causing. And how many Chinese men or Japanese men you see with big breasts walking around? Okay. Lignans is a component of beans that are tremendously beneficial. They actually suppress cancer growth. Oh, I forgot to tell you, flaxseed. By the way, flaxseed, how many of you consume flaxseed on a regular basis? Studies have shown that there was a fascinating study did in California. What they do was took men who had prostate enlargement, they did a needle biopsy, so they put it under the microscope, they detected prostate cancer. They said they scheduled them for the surgery or the prostate removal a month later. So the scientists said, hey, we can do something with this. So they told these men to consume 3 tablespoons of freshly ground flaxseed every day. At the end of 30 days, they had surgery, they removed the prostate, and they put it under the microscope, compared it to the biopsy they had done 30 days earlier. You know what they found? The cancer had begun to shrink already. And not only did that do, it also shrunk the normally enlarged prostate gland. What does it mean? It means that if you have men who have to wake up 3 or 4 times in the night to empty the bladder, start consuming flaxseed, and they stop having to get up in the night. It has happened to a lot of my friends. One of my friends, doctor, he called me and said, hey, I'm having this problem. I have to get up so many times at night. I said, start consuming flaxseed. Problem solved. It suppresses cancer. Go ahead. Oh, one other question. Somebody has a micro. Give me a microphone, please.
Are there similar benefits with flaxseed oil?
Absolutely not.
Ah.
Listen, we did a study. We gave people vitamin A supplements. Let me start the story step back. We know that people who eat a lot of dark greens have less cancers and die less frequently. So the scientists, you cannot patent lettuce or kale or broccoli, So what they did was, they said, let's find out what is in the green leafies that may be beneficial. They said it's got lots of vitamin A. So they gave them vitamin A supplements. The people who took vitamin A supplements had increased death rate. Example number 2. People who eat a lot of nuts and seeds have fewer heart attacks and live longer. So they said, again, you cannot patent a nut, right? So they said, what is in the nut that could be beneficial? Vitamin E. So they said, let's give vitamin E to patients. And the people who take vitamin E supplement died sooner. Third example, people who ate a lot of tomatoes have fewer prostate cancer. When they took the red pigment called lycopene, they gave them lycopene supplements, the cancer spread faster. Moral of the story? Go ahead.
I like nuts and seeds, but I also like dark chocolate.
You know, that's coming in the afternoon session. I'm going to talk about chocolate, okay? I don't want to give away the whole story. I have a few more minutes. I want to talk about the next topic. It takes about 3 more minutes to finish up. You see, blind women, women who have been blind for a long time, have fewer cancers, breast cancer, than women with full sight. Now, I'm not telling you to go get some of your eyes taken out. That's not the moral of the story. The question is why? Why are these blind women have fewer cancers? You see, there's a gland behind the brain. It's not seen because the thing, it's called pineal gland. That's a pineal gland. The pineal gland produces melatonin. Okay? Did you know that melatonin is secreted only when there's no light shining in your eye? So when your mother told you, turn off light and go to sleep, she was scientifically accurate. When you sleep in a dark room, tons and tons of melatonin are produced. And melatonin is a powerful suppressor of cancer cells. Okay? So, if you stay up all night or have lights on at night when you sleep, or you have, light streaming through the window, you are not getting enough melatonin secretion. Somebody has a question here.
I know parents that are giving melatonin supplements to their children at night. What do you say?
I'm sorry?
There are parents I know that are giving their young children melatonin at night.
Small amounts of melatonin supplements are okay, if only when it's needed. But try to get them to sleep in a dark room with no lights, no sound, nothing else. And by the way, the bedroom should be as cool as possible. The lower the temperature, the better the quality of sleep. In fact, I travel a lot to do surgery in multiple hospitals. I carry clothespins with me in my bag because sometimes the shades don't close all the way. I use a clothespin to clip them together so there's no light coming in. All right? This is a study I'm quoting. It's a 30-year-long study. They found that people who did nighttime work, night shift work, had increased risk of diabetes, obesity, heart attacks, strokes, cancers. Why? Because God made you to sleep at night. That's why He made dark and light. He needs you to sleep when it's dark, not stay up and do late work. There are many reasons. We don't have time to go into the details, but cortisol level is high when you're up at night. Cortisol level should be low when you sleep. So, question for you. Why are you not eating dark greens every day? Why are you still not consuming cooked beans every day? How come you're not consuming all this flax, turmeric, ginger, garlic, and fenugreek every day? I'll talk more about it this afternoon. The question is, why are you still eating chicken, fish, beef, lamb, eggs, and dairy? Here's my conclusion. I think there is a better way to live. If God wanted you to have steak, wouldn't you? What kind of a steak did God give Adam and Eve? Was it a flank steak or a beef, ribeye? What did they get from God, Adam and Eve? You get a ribeye or a T-bone? Yeah, okay. So here are my 10 steps to cancer prevention. Walk 4 miles a day. Avoid all animal products. Consume 3 tablespoons of ground flax every day. Eat 4 servings of dark greens every day. That is 2 cups. Each serving is half a cup. Eat 4 servings of fully cooked beans every day. Consume turmeric, ginger, garlic every day. Consume sweet potatoes, purple cabbage, and cauliflower. Consume berries daily. By the way, when you put whipped cream on the berries, it blocks the absorption of all the nutrients. Berries should be consumed plain. No whipped topping. Avoid high fat and high sugar. And sleep 7 hours a night. It has to be in the night. It has to be 7 hours. If you sleep less than 7 hours, your risk of dying is increased. If you sleep more than 8 hours, risk of dying is increased. Death rate goes up above 7 hours and goes up below 7 hours. 7 is the optimum. Any questions? Yes, let's take questions. Go ahead.
What is your feeling on multivitamins?
They increase the death. There were several reports, but the latest result came out just 2 weeks ago. There was a report that showed that multivitamin increased the mortality. And this I knew already because there were other studies in the past. Listen, the moral of the story is don't eat pills, eat plants. You had a question, sir. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, there's a gentleman with a question there at the back.
What is your, opinion about GMO foods?
Mixed. Because there are some GMO techniques which are actually beneficial to human beings. For example, there is a grain called rapeseed. Are you familiar with rapeseed? Rapeseed has an oil in it, and that oil has a chemical called erucic acid. About 3% of the 3 parts per million parts of erucic acid. 30 parts per billion of erucic acid. At that level, it is toxic to human beings. But the scientists figured out by genetic manipulation, which is GMO, what they found out, they could reduce the amount of erucic acid from 30 parts per billion down million to 3 parts per billion. At that level, it is safe to consume. So that is actually, this was done by the Canadian scientists. That is called Canadian Oil Company. Now you know where the word canola comes from. That's canola oil. That's rapeseed oil. But rapeseed oil is genetically modified to make it safer. So there are a lot of genetically modified foods, but I don't agree with certain genetic modification, like they take pig, DNA, put it into eggplant. That I believe is not a good idea. Any other questions? By the way, if you want more information, there are a couple of suggestions for you. I do a weekly show at 5 o'clock in the evening on my radio station called the KEQQ Radio, FM 88.3 in Grand Forks. But you can't hear it here. You'll have to go online, www.keqqradio.com. We also do other stuff on the radio. We have a Bible study every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. We have a live concert every Friday night. In fact, I did a concert last night. You can do that, but if you want, you can also sign up for my email. I can send you lots of information. I have published about 60 newsletters on various topics: prostate cancer, breast cancer, diabetes, and even I've written 3 articles on water and 3 articles on salt. And so if you want any of those, they are all free of charge. You can just email me, we'll send them to you. Any other questions? We have way past time. Well, thank you for the compliment, but I find that this is my life's passion. I want to make things be better for people. I'm not trying to boast, but I actually cook 6 items every week for Saturday, and I serve it, and then I do serve about 5 different hospitals in North Dakota, Minnesota, and in South Dakota. But the God has given me some enough energy to keep going, and I want to keep doing that until God says stop. Yes, go ahead.
Do you share your recipes?
Yes, you can email me. I'll send you the recipes. I have recipes for lentils, and it's awesome. Tastes. I told you every time I bring the food, there's nothing left for me to take home. Yes, go ahead.
You mentioned diabetes a number of times. Is there a way of reversing diabetes?
Yes, I have reversed. I've cured them. But obviously, if you have, like, you're on 60 units of insulin 3 times a day, we may not be able to cure it, but we can certainly reduce the amount. Well, I guess your church will have to invite me again, and we'll come back and talk about reversing diabetes. I have a talk on reversing diabetes. I have helped a lot of people reverse diabetes. It's possible. Type 2, not type 1, but type 2. Any other questions? I'll hand it over to your leadership here. Thank you.
Father in heaven, we thank you for this information today. We are glad to be together. We are glad for the way you've put the world together. So, thank you, Father. Amen. You're all invited over for lunch over at the school.